Great.
Oh my God, this is going off to a great start. What's up, everybody?
Holy Toledo.
Welcome back to another episode of the Boiler Express podcast. I'm your host, the Ultimate Boiler. As always, we've got the crew with me. We've got Frank, Russ, Dylan. We're without Chris tonight. He's at what would you call it, Dylan?
The NARC convention.
He's at a NARC convention in Las Vegas. So, Chris, we hope you're having a great time with all your NARC friends and stuff.
The least
yeah,
fun
so
party ever.
But yeah, just wanted to do a quick podcast tonight, kind of talk about the so last week we talked about weeks 1 and 2. We're going to talk about weeks 3 and 4. But before we get into anything, first I want to shout out our partnership, Big Banter Sports, your one-stop shop for all things Big Ten sports. We've got all of the football guys locked down so far this year, and I know that they're working on basketball right now. So good things, big things are coming their way or our way with Big Banner. So shout out to Big Banner, and make sure you follow them and stay in tune with them for all the latest stuff going on in the Big Ten. And then I want to shout out our sponsorship as well, Cincy Blitz Boards, a Boilermaker-owned business. It's a really fun, would you call it like a yard game almost? Like something you would take to
like
tailgates,
a
good tailgate game, something you would take to like a family cookout. Just a really good time. And so, yeah, shout out to Cincy Blitz Boards. You can follow them at Blitz Boards on Twitter and DM them currently to get yours today. So, but yeah, let's get into it, guys. First of all, how's everybody doing? How's your week's been?
Fantastic. It's hot. It's too hot. I'm ready for fall weather. I'm sweating too much. I'm not happy.
It has been very, very hot.
It's miserable. It's not big dude weather, and it stinks.
It's really not.
No, you guys are slim. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Russ is a male model. What do we?
Oh,
look, a compliment, Russ. Not
wow.
No joke. Not
Did
no
you know who you were
joke,
talking to there? What's going on? We got to get Chris off the pod more. You're nicer to me now. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't have Chris to help me pick on you.
I finally feel 100% because I was sick last week. It was terrible, but
we thought we were going to have to find a new host there for a second. It was getting. It wasn't going to be me.
It wasn't going to be Dylan. Yeah,
it wasn't going to be me. Really, it's one thing before you host a podcast, and then the 3, 2, 1, and then you're just like. It's a deer in headlights, man. Oh, I don't know how you do it, but you do it.
Especially when you don't have the intro ready. It's just like,
oh god, I would have turned it off. I would have been like, all right, guys, have fun. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I got tested for all sorts of stuff, flu, strep, COVID. It all came back negative. So just some really nasty, sucky virus that I had for a week. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. Like I said earlier, we are talking today about weeks 3 and 4. So Russ, who are we playing?
So week 3, Saturday, September 16th, we play our return game at home against the Syracuse Orange. This one's actually the first night game of the year, so it'll be 7:30 kickoff.
Nice.
Is what it's set for. Syracuse went 7-6 llast year, 4-4 in conference, finished 3rd in their Atlantic Division. Pulled out a controversial 33-29 victory at home against us last year with a 25-yard touchdown pass with just 7 seconds left. The big storyline was the penalties in that game. I think Purdue was called for 13 with 144 yards of penalty yardage, including the back-to-back penalties on our last, what was our go-ahead score, that had us kicking off at our own 10-yard line and set up that last drive for them. Garrett Schrader, was lowered as a big time quarterback and was a threat. Obviously, Sean Tucker was kind of neutralized by our defense, but Garrett Schrader didn't really have that great of a game against us. He was 13 of 29 for 181 yards, but did have 3 touchdowns, and he led them with 83 yards on the ground. But it felt like we bottled him up, and he just made the big play when he needed to. But for the majority of the game, I felt like 90% of the game we had our way with him on defense. But yeah, they lost to Minnesota in their bowl game, the Bad Boy Mowers Bowl in Yankee Stadium, 28-20. They're kind of opposite of Fresno State, right? Like Fresno State, we talked about, they started 1-4 and they finished 10-4. Well, Syracuse started 6-0 and they finished 7-6. So,
wasn't there some talk of like them being a championship level team at some point?
Yeah, because it was at one point Penn State and Syracuse were both undefeated, and they were both kind of heartbreaking losses for us. but they were also both like top 10 or like top 12 teams. I think like 5 weeks in the season. So yeah, they thought they were going to be great, and then they got smacked by Clemson, and that just kind of started a run of bad games for them. So
And in that game, I mean, like two things stick out to me, just like in my immediate memory. One was it was Payne Durham, getting that 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty, and then Brom reacting to that, resulting in another 15-yard penalty. Just want to share a little anecdote about that particular play. So got this little autograph here from Payne. And when I got this, I actually asked him, I said, "What did you say that warranted that 15-yard penalty?" And he just kind of laughed and said, "I don't remember." And Payne, I know you're listening. I think you do remember. And I would love to know what that was.
Tell the people. We need to know.
Yeah. Because whatever it was, the referee decided it was a 15-yard penalty. And Russ, you have a better memory than I do about the specifics of plays. There was a play where we had stopped them on 4th down, and someone got a late hit, which led to a Syracuse score. Those are the two things that stick out to me about that game, because that was so frustrating.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you mentioned the back-to-backs there, but the one that stood out to me was the one that set them up on the 25-yard line with 7 seconds left. Because even up to that point, it was like, we still got this in the bag. Like they might be able to kick a long field goal, but then they had that late hit that took them from, basically outside of field goal range, because you're talking about being on the 40 or the 41 was it where they're at. So that's, you're talking about a 56-yard, 57-yard field goal in college is not very makeable. Just ask Ohio State. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it was still looking good for us, and then that penalty just kind of took the wind out of our sails. And then I think the next play, or like 2 plays later, was that 25-yard touchdown pass. So.
I still don't get why, because they were in man coverage on that final play too, weren't they? They weren't in like any kind of a zone or cover or anything like that.
No, I believe we had a safety over the top. I think we did. We didn't. I don't think we went full man without help over the top. But yeah, the penalties were definitely controversial in that game. Not just those 3 we mentioned, but it felt like there was a couple of big pass interference penalties when there was people, I think, posting on Twitter videos of our receivers basically getting played the exact same way that their receivers got played, but they were calling defensive pass interference on us, but we weren't getting the calls when we were on offense. So it was one of those games that it felt like was getting called 2 ways.
Right. And then didn't Charlie Jones play like injured for a lot of that game, or hurt or something? I thought he got pretty banged up.
Yeah, like half the season, it felt like he was maybe not suiting up, and then he'd suit up and get 120 yards and 8 catches and a touchdown or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're coming to town. Do they have a lot of transfers? Did they hit the transfer portal hard? Or I know you said that was kind of the difference between them and like Fresno State. So are they pretty well the same team from last year?
Well, at the top, as far as their quarterback goes, yes, Garrett Schrader is returning. I think he's a senior this year. But Sean Tucker did graduate, and they did lose 3 starters on the O-line. But they returned 7 starters on defense. Their defense is still going to be pretty similar to what we faced last year. And they have their top receiver coming back, Orlando Gadsden. Sorry if I butchered that name.
Nailed it.
He was the one that actually had the 25-yard game winner against us too, but he had 61 catches for 969 yards and 6 touchdowns last year. And I think their 3rd leading receiver returns as well. So they still got a decent pass game returning. It's kind of a question mark who's going to run the ball, aside from Schrader, of course. Schrader might be their leading rusher this year. So I think it's going to be a little bit different for us defensively too, because we've got, again, we talked about the rushing quarterbacks and the dual threat guys that we might face in the first 2 games. Having Walters with a defensive front that's kind of hard to guess and is kind of ready for anything, I think we're going to be a lot better equipped to face these dual threat guys than we have historically in the past. So I feel pretty good of these 2 games that we're going to talk about tonight. I feel a lot better about this one, obviously, considering the historic, background of the other game. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this one, being able to get this one back.
Do you guys have any score predictions? I know we didn't do that last week, but I just thought of it. Does anybody have a score prediction for this game?
Boilers by 1 billion.
I always like that prediction, Boilers by 1 billion.
Yeah.
When like it's I'm looking at PFF, and for anyone who doesn't know, PFF is the company owned by Chris Collinsworth, Pro Football Focus. They do Yeah, they do a lot of really cool, a lot of really cool analytics and data behind football.
That's
So
cool.
let's say a quarterback throws a ball and it hits the receiver right in the hands, and the receiver drops it. The receiver gets penalized, the quarterback doesn't, and so so that it sort of factors things like that in the stats. But just looking at last year's game against Syracuse, our best performing defender was Branson Dean, who unfortunately is gone now. But number 2 is actually Scotty Humpick. I've heard it pronounced both ways. So Scotty, I apologize. I know I pronounced it incorrectly at least once, but that's really encouraging to see. Lawrence Johnson was up there. Cam Allen and Corey Trice, top 5 defensive players in that game. So
What was the fourth name? What was that?
Cam Allen.
Okay.
Yeah. It was one of his better games, and he showed up, so good for him. Jack Sullivan's also up there, and that's interesting to have him up there so high, and being that he was actually the one. I did look it up. He was the one who had the late hit
Mhm.
on 4th down to give him a first down. But man, he's one guy I will really miss. I wish he was in the black and gold again.
Yeah, man, there's a couple of guys now. I totally spaced all these guys that have left: Jack Sullivan, Lawrence Johnson, Branson Dean. God, man, I miss those guys.
Dogs.
And then on the O line too, losing Spencer Holstage. I said it so many times last season. He was the unsung hero of the team. Like, hadn't given up a single sack all season. Losing him and Eric Miller is just, that's tough. But Walters can recruit. I mean, I've said this. I feel like some people maybe that I'm talking to right now will agree with me. I don't know how the rest of the Purdue fan base feels, but I feel like our floor for recruiting has gone up a notch.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
I don't know about our ceiling still.
I
Our
think
ceiling is just as high as it was under our previous coach, but the floor is definitely up, though.
I think now we expect to get at least a couple of 4 stars every year.
Yeah,
A man once said the ceiling is indeed the roof. So you never know.
yeah.
Shout out Michael Jordan.
But I just under Coach Chef Brom, I'll say his name. We would, like, the floor was lower. Maybe the ceiling was a little bit higher. I mean, we really, like, you take away Rondale Moore, you take away George Karlaftis, the ceiling is 100% the same. And like, time will tell whether we get another George Karlaftis or another, Rondale Moore. Or
was Hazel like the cellar? Like, was he the basement?
See, I don't think Hazel players were that bad. I think they were just
really
really
were.
coached.
That's twice we just said his name. Come on, guys.
Well, I mean, think about this, and this is
I'll
something
throw salt over my back later.
This is something that always pains me to think about too. 2 quarterbacks who played under Hazel both left and went and started in the SEC.
Yep,
Very
Etling
true.
and Appleby.
And they played each other.
And they played against each other too. And I'm like, what are we doing wrong? Like, we had both of these guys on our roster.
And one of
I
them's still
take
in the
back what I
NFL.
said.
Etling's still in the NFL. Etling's
He is, yeah. He's
fighting for
he's
Jordan
on
Love's backup spot with the
Packers.
Packers.
Yeah.
He's actually, I think, Dylan's first draft pick in our fantasy football league.
Probably.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
we
and
need
you
more
got-
members for that, don't we? We should pub that.
Yeah, we
We
should.
got Jawan Bentley as well,
So
who's
good.
in the NFL and has been having a very good NFL career, by the way.
Mhm. He just
Hey,
got paid.
we got a
He
couple
just got
boilers on my
restructured
Bengals.
contract.
Chuck Sizzle,
Darnay
Marcus
Jones and
Bailey.
Marcus Bailey, yeah. And I'm a shameless Steelers fan. I'm really happy to have my favorite Purdue player in the black and yellow in the NFL this season.
Bryson comes to play. The Rams come to Cincinnati this year. I may have to go to that game.
Friend of the pod.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll meet
Friend
you
of the
there.
program.
Friend
Well,
of
it's
the
all
program.
go. Yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, hour and a half drive for me. I'll meet you in Cincinnati to watch
Let's do
Bryson
it.
play. Yeah.
Russ
Is that
Ray
really?
invited?
That's
I'm a
nice.
Bengals fan now. I better be invited.
I don't know. That star behind you says otherwise, sir.
Well,
That,
I can't ever if somebody's talking about something behind me and I try to point to it, I'm always wrong.
it really
Every time.
messes you up. I was doing it before the podcast, and I was
It's
like,
Mackey. Pointing to Mackey.
yeah, I mean, you're smart.
show off.
Before we move on to our next opponent, is one of my most hated opponents. I do want to take this opportunity to shout out some of our listeners. I think it's fun from time to time to look on our RSS feed and see where people are listening to us at. Come to find out, we're really popular in Belgium. So I know all you Belgian listeners out there, we really appreciate your support.
I
So
did
just
purchase a Belgian flag. Forgot to put it up. That's on
yeah,
me.
yeah, and it's totally legitimate. It's totally not just people using a VPN. I'm sure.
Very
That's right.
financially responsible I am.
But we have listeners all over the place. We're fairly popular in Nicaragua as a
Big Purdue country.
France, Spain, Jamaica. I mean, just so really, I really appreciate the support
We're really an
internationally.
international program. I mean, you've been traveling all over the world.
Yeah,
Big brain Bourdain over
I
there.
have been recruited. I've been spreading the word all over the
Spreading the gospel, the Boiler Express.
So we have had 4 listeners in Spain. So to the Spanish
Spain.
who are
Gracias.
the Spaniards who are listening,
Hey,
I will,
gracias.
I will
You sound like the guy that nobody likes that goes out to eat at like a Mexican restaurant.
Can I have the quesadilla, please?
gracias, senor.
Yeah.
Gracias.
Uh,
But no,
Say it like
to our Spanish listeners, I will be
We
in
lost
Spain
those
in
4
October.
listeners.
Love to meet up with you, put a face to a name, or don't
Oh,
don't
you
even
are
have a
going to
name.
Spain?
Yeah, going to Spain in October.
Where haven't you been?
Yeah,
Every
of
time
course,
course,
Spain,
of
I
course.
swear.
she's like, sorry guys, I can't be on the podcast. I'm in somewhere other than the Midwest. Sorry.
Way to
Yeah.
land that joke. Way to land that joke. Good job.
Well, no, you guys are technically in the South, aren't you?
Technically, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
Is
Louisville's
Kentucky
part of
considered the
Midwest, though.
South?
It
Yeah.
is, and I'm right on the border, so I go like 2 miles north, and I'm in the Midwest, and it's really
Yeah.
strange.
That's
I will say
technically
it
the
is
Midwest.
funny that we're really close. I'm really close to the border as well to Kentucky, and so like I hire a lot of people that will come from Kentucky to work, and literally a 20-minute drive across the bridge, and their accent is so different. It's howdy y'all and
How you doing? That's where
Yeah.
my mom's side of the
Yins.
family's from. Man, I'm bilingual. I can speak whatever that is and regular English sometimes, not all the time. I can't type it, that's for sure. I don't do words good.
So before we go to our next game, though, I did write a couple of topics down that I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on. So number one, Illinois hires Jim Leonard as a senior analyst for, I think senior defense analyst or just senior analyst in general. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of shocked to see him take a position that's not more like hands-on coaching. I was kind of shocked about that. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that was my immediate reaction. It was like, oh, Jim Leonard's fallen pretty hard. I mean, no disrespect to Jim Leonard, but like I that's not what I expected to hear when I saw Illinois hired Jim Leonard.
Right, like not even as a defensive coordinator or
Yeah.
anything, just as an analyst. Yeah, I was surprised he didn't take a. I wonder if there's like a good reason like why Wisconsin didn't move forward with him and why he's not been hired somewhere else, or if it's just bad
Well,
luck.
Luke Fickle's a pretty big name, so I think if you can get a guy like that, it does trump some other candidates. But it might just be a feature or a situation where it was so late in the game that he just had to take some position to still be attached to football this year, and then he's going to look for a position, come October, November when their coaches are getting fired earlier before the end of the season, and then he can kind of pounce on one of those jobs because now it feels like the coaching shift and the coaching hiring is done more late November, early December now, whereas it used to be like in the off season, but now it's like you gotta hire your guy the first week of December as soon as you get done with your last game, and sometimes it's like before your last game you've already interviewed the guy, and then as soon as the final whistle blows, you're announcing your new coach. So
Yeah.
he might have just been behind the ball a little bit as far as getting into some of these job searches and putting his name in for some of these roles that were out there. So
I remember he was on my short list for Purdue last year when they were looking for their coach in the offseason. I think it was him. My dream list was like Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator from TCU. I think he's now at Clemson. And honestly,
and
I had
Orgeron?
no, I didn't know that would be Dylan. Dylan probably had Ed Orgeron on his
Oh, I
list.
absolutely did. He
Go
was my
Boilers!
frontrunner.
Go Boilers!
I just want to hear him say "Go Boilers" every 5 seconds. Like I just imagine every 5 seconds, "Go Boilers," and I'd be like, "Yes, dude,
Yes.
boiler gumbo." I don't know, whatever.
It's
they're
like
saying.
who's the celebrity that you retweeted their video of them saying "Boiler Up"? They're like some
Oh,
race
it was
car
Tony
drivers.
Kanaan.
Tony
Yeah.
Kanaan, Really?
Some-
Oil
Some
up.
race car driver?
Yeah, some race car drivers.
I don't
Still
watch
disrespectful.
racing, dude. I don't watch cars go around in a
It's-
circle for 3
Whoa.
hours.
You live in
Whoa,
Indiana.
okay.
Careful.
Our
Indiana's
most,
all
our most
motorsports and
watched
high school
city
basketball.
is the city of Indianapolis, and you're gonna
Mm.
down them on the Indy 500. You hate
Sorry.
America. That's what that is.
Sorry.
I didn't know you were communist. God. Just kidding. Damon's not guy. He's very American.
So
Loves
on,
America.
on the subject of coaches and former coaches, what happened with Jim Harbaugh? I caught
Yeah, I
some
don't-
headlines. I haven't looked into it, but he said some things that maybe
Something
weren't
recruiting
true,
related,
or-
right?
I don't know. Vacate last year's Big Ten championship, and all is well in my book. Hang the banner.
But it just like what a stupid punishment. So he misses the first 4 games. Who did they play in their first 4 games?
He misses the preseason. That's what he misses.
I may be mistaken, but I believe it has to do with something about like buying a meal for a incoming recruit or
Oh,
a
that's
prospective
lame.
recruit. So yeah, it's especially lame when you consider that these guys are signing 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures NIL deals, and you can't buy an incoming prospective recruit a
But a
meal.
few years ago, didn't
Like,
Harbaugh
what
didn't
a
he
joke.
spend the night at a recruit's house? Like that's
Yeah.
fine. Okay, a grown
Ooh.
man can spend the night in a kid's
That's
room,
weird.
but he buys him a burger and all hell breaks loose. Like what do we? That doesn't
I-
make sense.
I don't.
We're talking about Jim Harbaugh, not Pat Fitzgerald. I don't know what.
I don't think he
Okay.
stayed in his room, Dylan. Just
Do what?
I
They
don't
were up
think
till
he
like
slept
3
in his
a.m. playing
room, man.
Xbox, playing Call of Duty together.
No, right? No, Frank. He had a sleeping bag, and
Hey,
are you still
should
awake?
come
Hey,
play
so I
for
just drew up this new play. What do you think? I think I'm gonna have you slide right in here into the slot and.
I think
whoa,
you'll be great.
Sorry, no. I didn't mean it.
whoa, whoa.
Wow. Okay, this is a family program.
Pause, Dylan.
Guys, this is all about
Pause.
football, okay? You
This is
nasties.
football talk only. God, you
Oh,
could have
and-
picked.
and
We had a wide route.
Chris
for
didn't
you.
even hear, and this is going off the rails.
Well, and looking at their schedule, they play East Carolina. Okay, they can win that game without Jim Harbaugh. Then they
Powerhouse.
play
That's a winnable game.
UNLV,
Is it a winnable
who
game?
they can also beat without Jim Harbaugh. Then they play. It gets crazy now. Then they play Bowling Green,
Oh God,
who they can beat without Jim
action.
Harbaugh. And then Rutgers.
Mighty Wreckers. Yep. Yeah,
So-
I actually tweeted out kind of another shot, and we talked about it with, I think when Brant was on here about how weak Michigan's schedule is. They basically scheduling like the SEC does, where outside of their conference games they schedule nobodies. So it's almost baked in that if they lose a guy for a suspension the first 4 to 6 games, it doesn't matter because their schedule's front loaded with cupcakes, and so they're good. They'll take the risk and go, hey, if he gets suspended, he'll miss games that don't matter anyways.
You're saying
know,
East Carolina's a cupcake? How dare you,
Mighty Pirates.
Mighty Pirates?
Let's go.
You know, I'm not gonna
Purple
lie.
Heart.
I sometimes I think about like I know that was one of the big things that when Brom came in, he was like, "We're playing a tough schedule every year. We're going to play the best of the best." I'm always like, I wouldn't mind just like getting some false hope one year, just starting off 4 or 5-0, and
Yeah.
just being like, "Wow, this is it. We're changing times," and then we just play play Ohio State and just get gobsmacked.
So the
55,
IU plan?
17.
You
Yeah, I was
want the
gonna,
IU
I
plan?
was gonna say the
Ooh.
IU plan. Yeah, just
Hey,
It's
by
like-
the way, isn't Bloomington in our like top 3 of?
I thought that's where you're going with that earlier.
Bloomington is number 3 in our
Wow.
list
Big
of
loss.
Specific cities where we have listeners. Yeah,
Shout out
Ooh.
to Often Donna and Leo podcast for tuning in.
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
we-
I
we
appreciate
very
you
much
guys.
appreciate that.
Bloomington
But it-
loves us. We'll go
but
there on
it-
tour.
It is the cycle, right, of an IU football season with respect to how their fans act. They go 3-0 because they play three cupcakes, and then their fans say, we should be ranked. We're going to win the Big Ten, and then they don't win another game. I mean, it just like it happens every year. What was it, like 5 or 6 years ago? They barely beat a bad Michigan State team at home in overtime, and like all 500 fans that were there freaked out, and IU football is back and all this stuff.
Back to what?
There's
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
more
you-
bird poop in that stadium than anything.
You have to have been somewhere to return there. You can't say like we're back when you like.
How did they do whenever like Antoine Randall was there?
I mean,
They-
like that's really the only like kind of era of IU football that.
But they were probably just like what Purdue was under. Like they were. Were they like 7-8 win teams, or did they win like 9-10 games a season?
Find out.
Whenever.
I'll find out.
Well, he I think they beat Purdue one year, and I think it was because he played like a year longer than Breeze did. So I think maybe like the year after Breeze left,
Oh,
they beat
Oregon's
us.
first
But
year.
Yeah.
I had something I was gonna say. I can't remember what it was though. Oh yeah. So these another thing I want to talk about, these Purdue the Boilermaker Alliance subscription service that they're coming out with now. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Russ said he was signing up for the $1,500 a month one. So, way to go, Russ! Attaboy.
as soon as Dylan sends me his credit card info, yep, gonna be signed up.
Well, guess I'll text that to you. I'll pigeon it to you. No, but
All
it
right,
is. I mean, like I'm all about supporting the NIL and all, but
I just wonder what
$1,500
it's going to be like, because I'm thinking of the way they're structuring this, or at least what it sounds like to me is like a Patreon. If somebody has a Patreon, it's like if you pay $5 a month, you get access to this and this. If you pay $10 a month, you get this, this, and this. It's like if you're paying $1,500 a month, are you sitting in on coaches meetings every week?
buddy,
or
I
like-
better have a spot on the team for $1,500 a month. I mean, I just want to be the backup kicker. I mean, that's
Do you
it.
get to like fly the private jet whenever they
Yeah,
go to
okay, that's exactly.
USC?
I want the private jet, and I want a headset on the sidelines for $1,500. $1,500 a month. You got me sold with the headset and the private jet.
I want
Once a
the
week.
Coach Walt treatment. I want to get picked up in. I want to go from West Lafayette and fly the private jet just to Champaign.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
all
Yeah.
of an 8-minute flight.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
every away
awesome.
game I better be able to use. That's a good point. Every away game you use the private jet. Bada bing bada. We'll take it to Virginia Tech. It'll fit.
Because
all
it
of us.
goes from $25, I think is the very first level, all the way up to $1,500 for like the Founders Club or something.
Which even
like that.
25 is pretty steep. I mean, when you're in the grand scheme of things, you know.
Damon, is that the $1,500 one, the one that you can call a play on Saturdays or something that you said, right?
Yeah, that's what
That's
I
a
said.
terrible idea. What do they did that such a bad? I just throw a damn Hail Mary.
No, for $10,000 a month, you can set the basketball starting lineup for one game of the season.
Oh, can you
Yeah.
imagine? Somebody would donate $10,000, be like, "We're playing zone tonight, boys.
That
Yeah.
one guy who called into the Matt Painter
We're
show
gonna
is
win a
gonna do that.
championship."
Hey, this would be the one year that I would,
you know
I would be
what?
okay with any of the guys in our rotation starting a game. Like,
Seriously,
Everybody was
plan-
crapping on that old man, but he kind of had a point at the end of the year. They kind of didn't do that great shooting threes.
Turns
Take
out
more
we
mid-ranges.
hired him as
Not
an
to get into
assistant.
that or anything, but
Not to
but-
open that can of worms.
But Damon, to answer your previous
But-
question, Antoine Randall, 1998 first season, IU went 4-7.
perfect.
1999, his second season, again they go 4-7.
Fantastic.
Now we go to 2000, Y2K, the world's gonna end. They go 3-8.
That was it.
Historic.
Yeah,
They-
2001, his senior year.
they
5
did
and
beat
6.
Purdue. They did beat Purdue that year too.
It went
You know
5
what the high scoring final
he
score
never
was?
had a winning season. And
That's
that's crazy
crazy.
because I just remember like he was like the heralded like guy.
Yeah,
like,
he's like
Yeah.
their Drew Brees, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term.
and
But
won-
even then, they don't talk about him a whole lot. Like,
Mhm.
you never like. I feel like the average college football follower wouldn't have realized that he had attended IU or played at IU.
Who was it that you said? Wasn't there a recruit that was like, I wouldn't have even known what Purdue was until like it was like the Purdue Ohio State 2018 game. They were like, I didn't even know who Purdue was until I like went for a visit or something. Like, wasn't it like Sanusi Kane or something? He like didn't know Purdue existed.
That's not great.
I hope not
I
because
mean-
I love Sanusi Kane. And that
I thought I could have
that would
sworn you
hurt
said
in my
something.
soul if that was
I
the
could have
case.
sworn you said something about like, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Or maybe he wasn't interested in Purdue until because he was like there, like that was the game he came on a visit on or something.
Oh no,
That's a
there
good
was
game.
there was a recruit who said that like that was like he remembered watching that game on TV and like that was like a statement game for him. It was like, oh, like this is this is
okay.
a program that's on the rise right now. I mean, because we like, I mean, I remember like we were taking shots before that game. It was like, oh, we have nothing to lose. Like we just if we lose, we lose. If we win, great. But like no one thought we were gonna win. Like realistically. So
Right.
that was
I
the
wish
statement
I was on the
program.
podcast after that game. Oh man, I would have been talking all sorts of smack. Who was the transfer from Purdue that transferred to I think Miami, and said that the
Branson Dean.
Branson
Right.
Dean.
and he's like the weather here is better in West Lafayette, and you're like, I would,
Well,
I would hope
yes.
so. I would hope
Well, I mean,
so.
and-
Wait till that hurricane rolls in. Yeah, wait
and
till
like-
that hurricane gets
Well,
in.
and not even that. He said he went as far as to say that the city of Miami is better than the city of West Lafayette.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
it just-
I love West
and-
Lala, but I won't argue that.
If you like high crime rates and no, sorry.
And,
What are you
and-
saying,
and
West Lafayette's Mayberry? Like, what are we?
a lot of Purdue fans were offended by that, and I'm like, I mean, no. Like, if you're a college student, you would much rather live in Miami than you would West Lafayette, Indiana. Like,
Yeah, unless you're like a homegrown, like one of us that just like, and even then, yeah, I feel like unless you're one of those guys that's like homegrown, you're born and bred to love Purdue. I think you would definitely pick Miami over Purdue every time. But
week 4, who comes to town, Russ?
The team that has our number, Wisconsin Badgers, and they actually come into town on a Friday night. So it's a Friday night game, another primetime game, 7 p.m. Was it the following week? There's not an off week between Syracuse and Wisconsin, but Wisconsin kind of underachieved last year, 7-6 as well, just like Syracuse. 4-5, they finished 5th in the Big Ten West. Beat Purdue 35-24. I won't get too much into the game because somebody in this chat and actually went to that game. But the controversial thing in that game for me was the terrible coverage by ESPN, how they always stack their dang games. And so if the game goes a little bit long, you're going to miss half the first quarter of the game that you're actually wanting to watch. So
You didn't miss.
by the time you turned on the Purdue Wisconsin game, it was 14-0 Wisconsin. So then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go grab something to eat real quick because the game's on now. You come back, it's 21-0. You're like, what the heck's going on? Okay, the second quarter will turn it around. A minute in the second quarter, it's 28-3, and you're like, okay, well, game's already over. This is great.
But
So
from the time we were down 14-0, we actually outscored them.
yep, that's what I was gonna say. So even from the time 28-3, we outscored them 21-7 after it was 28-3.
good old moral
After they jumped
victory.
Yeah.
Well, and that was
But
that was just a
sorry.
game that, because spoiler alert, I was the one at that game. That was just a game where it was like, who are we? Like that's what we kept asking, is like we just look like a completely different team than we did, the week before, which is lost on me. Who we played the week before? Was it Minnesota, right? That we
Yeah.
beat the week before.
we actually won 4 straight before that game.
It's-
Going into that game, we had a 4-game win streak.
So like we had just beat Minnesota, again, a team that I think that was undefeated,
Yeah, we were
and a lot of
4-2.
people were saying should be in the talk for a potential college football playoff team, and then that that fell apart, as it always does. But it was just like, who are we? I mean, like O'Connell threw that pick six at the beginning. It just no one looked in sync. But Mock Train had a really good game. Mock Train played
Yeah,
really
he went for
well.
100 plus.
Yeah.
I think the story of that game was the big plays. That we just gave up, bad turnovers and then big plays, because one of the telling stats from that game was Wisconsin had only one trip to the red zone. They put up 35 points with only one trip to the red zone. They turned that one trip into a touchdown, but it was big plays, right? The pick six, and it had like a long return, I think, for a touchdown. So yeah, it was just the big plays. We played well. Again, it was kind of like the Syracuse game. It felt like, we had control of most of the game. It was just we put ourselves in too big of a hole to start the game, and then still gave up one or two big plays the rest of the way, and just couldn't get back into it.
Another thing that I remember specifically about that game and being there, and I know we talked about it on here, was just how banged up the team was at that time. I mean,
That's true too.
the injury tent was up constantly. And you'd see guys hobble off the sidelines, like into the injury tent, and then they'd hobble back, onto the field. Then clearly not 100%. I think Jack Sullivan was in the tent like 5 or 6 times during that game. Charlie Jones was in and out the entire time. Basically, the entire D line was in there. Sid Nor was in and out several times. Branson Dean was in and out. So it was just very clear that we were very tired, very worn down, very beat up. And I think that was the game before our bye week. So we desperately needed that
Crawling
bye
to
week.
the finish line, yeah.
But it had that same kind of storyline of every Purdue Wisconsin game, that Wisconsin's just going to run the ball, and in the first quarter it's going to look like we can stop them, and then come fourth quarter they're getting 4 or 5 yards of carry and just marching their way down the field. And it's so frustrating because and at the beginning of the game, it feels like we have a chance, and then they just continue to cycle in O-line, and like we just don't have the D-line depth. Even though I feel like we did have pretty good D-line depth last season, we just don't have the depth to match up with their offensive line.
I really hope that's something that's different with Coach Walters and strength and conditioning. I know every team goes through, you're playing football 12 weeks out of the year. You're getting, almost consecutively, you're getting banged up. But it felt like every year it was like, what was it, 2019 or 2018, where it was like half a roster was out, down and out. I mean, Sindelar and Moore, they were
Getting
both
hurt
down
on
that
the same
year.
play.
Oh, I've
same
never
play.
been in a
Same play.
stadium where it felt like everyone was like at the same time.
You were at that game too? Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
it
it was
was
terrible.
one of the top 5 worst moments in Ross Saint. Those two getting injured at the same exact time.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that kind of
And Sindelar was on a record tear to start that season, right?
Yeah.
Like he was leading the college football in passing yards at that point, I think.
One of my favorite Boilermakers, Jared Sindelar.
Who?
Yep,
I was
that's
gonna
not
say
his first name.
that.
Is it?
Not his-
That's
yeah.
not his first
You
name.
like him so much that you forget.
I
his first
love
name.
him. Big
Yeah.
fan. Can't remember his first name, but
Elijah.
Elijah Jared.
He finished out a season with a torn ACL.
Where did I get Jared?
Jared Sparks, who was a
Sure.
quarterback who
Yep.
turned into a
That's
wide
exactly.
receiver.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I got.
But who's Wisconsin return is
Braylon Allen.
So Braylon Allen is
Yeah.
coming back. That's the big name. So, I know we're big fans of Devin Mockabee, and honestly, if I had my pick, I'd still take him just because he's our guy. But there's controversy on. I think it was Big Banter put out a top returning running backs, and either didn't have Mockabee on there. He was like 8th or something. But
wow.
Braylon Allen, he's projected to actually be a top first round pick in the NFL draft. Which, if you follow NFL football, there's controversy right now over how devalued the running back position is, how they're not getting paid. So for a running back to be projected as a first round pick means that they're kind of a generational talent. You've also got Blake Corum at Michigan and Katron Allen. So there's a lot of good running backs returning in this league. But yeah, Wisconsin's definitely, it seems like they're still going to be that pound the rock team. But the biggest addition they have coming in this year is Luke Fickell. Being the new head coach, new head man, that's almost a bigger impact than any one transfer is going to have.
They got the quarterback too from
SMU. Yeah. Tanner Mordecai is likely going to be their starter because Graham Mertz went off to Florida. They also brought in
he's still
Nick Evers from Oklahoma and Braden Locke from Mississippi State. But again, Tanner Mordecai is supposed to be the starter. They bring back their top 3 receivers, and they also brought in 3 pretty decent transfers. So their passing weapons will be pretty stocked full as well. They did lose some defensive pieces, including 2 to Mr. Frank's favorite NFL team there, which Pittsburgh Steelers, they're big fans of the Big Ten apparently, because every draft pick other than 2 guys from some team down in Georgia, like the Bulldogs or something, some team down there I've never heard of. But every other pick was from the Big Ten.
Yeah,
so that was kind of
Joey
interesting.
Porter Jr. first. That was
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 1 Penn State guy, 2 Wisconsin, Trice, and then offensive lineman from like Maryland, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'll still have nightmares about Joey Porter Jr. against Purdue.
Yeah.
It just kept throwing to him. I didn't get it. Just didn't make sense to me. Just kept throwing his direction.
So one interesting thing, when I did some research, I looked up, I was looking at an article on collegefootballnews.com about Wisconsin going into this season and just kind of recapping what they've done last year and recently. They had an interesting phrasing about Wisconsin and how they've done over the last decade, or close to decade. So they said Wisconsin has, quote, earned the distinction of being the winningest FBS team in the last 9 years to not make a college football playoff game. I don't know if I'd ever describe that as a distinction.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're the best team to not make the playoff. Like, oh, okay, all right. But
yeah, I mean, well, it's just like Purdue always gets thrown into that lot of like best college basketball team to never win the national championship.
yeah, I think it's like them and Oklahoma are right up there, maybe kind of going back and forth
Yeah.
for teams that have won the most tournament games without winning a championship. So,
Sorry, go ahead, Russ.
no, I was just going to say, I think, Wisconsin is definitely, of these first 4 games, the one that I'm most nervous about, not just because of the history, but, they are very talented. They bring in a pretty high profile head coach, Luke Fickell. Obviously Ohio State to Cincinnati, had a lot of success at Cincinnati. And now into the Big Ten with Wisconsin, and brought in some decent transfers. I feel like it's kind of a situation that kind of no disrespect to our roster because we did lose a lot of guys to the NFL, but Wisconsin's a little better stocked, and then he also brought in some transfers that are pretty well known. So I'm definitely nervous about the Wisconsin game, but I just want to remind everybody of how last year started and how kind of gloom and doom it was. But we lost to both of these teams that we're talking about today, Syracuse and Wisconsin, and we ended up in the Big Ten championship game. So just keep everything in perspective.
Yeah,
Just
Keep
chill
everything
the
in
hell
perspective. Yeah.
When Wisconsin finished 6-6 last season too. I mean, it just
Yep.
because I remember feeling really good about our chances of beating Wisconsin because they looked
Yeah, same
vulnerable.
here.
But I really feel like Purdue beat Purdue in that game. It wasn't Wisconsin beating Purdue, and I mean no disrespect to Wisconsin when I say that. It just we made a bunch of sloppy mistakes that we wouldn't normally make.
Yeah.
They lost. They got that's right. They got just like blown out by Illinois.
Yeah, like I said, they had one red zone trip. So it wasn't like they marched up and down the field on us and had their way with us. Like we just didn't make the big plays when we needed to and made bad mistakes at bad times.
So while we were talking about the Wisconsin game, somebody did comment on our live post here on Twitter and said, this is from Alan Pogue. Alan says, Purdue must beat Wisconsin in football. The next game should be considered a must win in all caps. He says it's equal to the IU game.
I agree. I honestly agree. Like
that's
what
a lot
is
of
it now?
pressure to
Like
put on a first year coach.
16 or 17 games now.
Yeah, that's the one caveat I'd say is the first year coach.
Yeah,
it's
but
a little tough to say must win, but yeah, they're definitely. I would almost rather beat them than IU right now.
yeah,
for sure.
and I definitely think from the player's perspective too. Like that's a game you have to want. I mean, like I'll never forget Rayfield Davis like hyping up the student section before the 2016 Michigan State game, which I know I've said is my favorite, like the best game I've ever seen in Mackey. But he was like, I've never beaten Michigan State. This is my last time playing them. Like, let's do it tonight. And like the players should have that mentality. Obviously, it takes a lot more than that to win. But like if I were a player, I would have that mentality. I think that's what I'm meaning to say. Not that not that the players should think anything about any specific game, but if I were a player, I would have that mentality for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a big game on the schedule. I mean, haven't beat Wisconsin in 19 years. They're always a thorn in our side. I thought the first time we were going to beat them in a long time was, what was that, a few years ago where we went to like triple overtime with them at Ross-Ade. Rondale Moore had the most beautiful juke to them, like the spin move. He spun them out of their shoes.
I was there for that one.
Oh my God.
I remember like out loud saying, what was that? Like, what did I just see? Like my eyes couldn't believe what I just saw.
I was waiting for that, Damon.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
Well, and so, I mean, again, like the one positive thing when I look at Wisconsin's schedule from last year, again, it's college sports. There's a lot of variance here, but they scored only 10 points against Illinois, whose defensive coordinator was our head coach now. So, I know he did a lot of like creative things in the last couple of seasons at Illinois, like putting 5 guys on the line. I don't know if we see something like that again against Wisconsin, but one thing I know is that Wisconsin's not going to know what to expect necessarily, and neither do I.
Well, I mean, by that time though, that's already 4 games into the season. They might have a little bit of an idea by then, but
I almost said earlier when we were talking about Syracuse and we're talking about the pieces that we lost defensively, that I think having a defensive-minded head coach that is obviously bringing in a lot of transfers and trying to just kind of stock us with depth that might not be the big 4 or 5-star guys, but having the scheme is almost more important on defense than kind of who's in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you could put together a scheme to put the guys in the right spot to make the plays, and you don't get guys in one-on-one situations, what seems like we've always had in years past, like struggling with man coverage, struggling with trying to make the open field tackle. But it seemed like at Illinois, which is not a football juggernaut, sorry, not trying to be offensive there,
No,
but
I don't think that's a hot
take. For him to turn that into a top 5 national defense and put guys, he put 4 guys in the draft this year, including like 3 guys in the first 3 rounds.
yeah,
that says a lot about how he can scheme defenses and how he can put guys in the right spot. So I feel pretty confident about our defense. The offense is the big question.
I think Witherspoon was a top
but-
5 pick, and he came out of high school, I don't think with any stars or just like 1 or 2. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, this year is just so like, I'm excited. I was looking over the roster. I forgot about a couple of the guys that he's brought in because we brought in so many. I mean, we've got the 4-star cornerback that was an Ole Miss commit, Braxton Myers. We've got I think he was a safety in Arkansas, maybe. He's gonna be here. I don't remember if it was a safety, it was some defensive position. Guy from Arkansas. We've got Jeffrey Imba from Auburn. We've got
was it Marcus Wilson? Was he the one guy from Arkansas?
Marquise Wilson. He was from Penn State.
Penn State. Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, yeah, this whole season is just, I don't know. I just hope that every Purdue fan has some sense in their brain to not freak out and jump ship and say, I knew we shouldn't have hired this young fella if we're not beating Fresno State 45-0 by halftime.
That's gonna happen.
So where do you guys think we're at since we're the third away in the season? We're 4 games in. I don't necessarily think it's easy to make point predictions on games because we don't know what, not to get all frank on y'all, but we don't know what the pace of play is going to be like. We don't know what the run pass mix is going to be like.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know what the offense is going to look like. And, are we sustaining drives? Are we going 3 and out a lot? So it's kind of hard to judge that. But as far as wins and losses go, where do you think we're going to be looking at 4 games in? And what would you be like happy with? Like, what would you be like, okay, I can see the future is going to be good.
So
what do you guys think?
After 4 games?
Yeah.
I would be content. I would think honestly, at worst, I would think it's like 2-2.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm predicting 2-2, and at 2-2, I'm still feeling good about the season and what we have.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure, absolutely.
It just like Syracuse is probably a 50-50 game. We have no idea what to expect from Virginia Tech. We have no idea what we're going to get from Fresno State, as we talked about last week. And we have no idea. I mean, there's so many unknowns about our own team. What sort of defensive scheme are we going to see? Who's going to start? I mean, like we have had so many guys come in, so many guys leave. Like who's going to be on the? I mean,
I will say that something that makes me feel really good about this team, and this could totally just be for show and, just a really good thing to say
a dog
in front of a camera. But, you watch that. I don't know if you guys watched that video of like episode 1 of like becoming a Boilermaker that they just posted recently for the football program. And it was guys like
I was going to talk about that.
Marcus Imbo and, other guys talking to Kydron Jenkins, talking to these new transfers about like, hey, what made you want to come to Purdue? And I don't remember who it was. It was like the very last line in one of the interviews. It was like, if everybody's playing at their best, who's to say, I can't remember what it was exactly. Something about like, how can we lose if everybody's playing at their best or something like that? And I was I was ready to run through a brick wall already. So it seems like the team, at least, and again, that could just be here, words being said, it could just be, for the camera, but it seems like the team and the new guys coming in, seeing this team for the first time, are seeing a team that is ready to go out there and play and kick some ass. So
the one thing that stuck out to me in that video was we went to the Big Ten championship last year. We didn't come away with a win. Now we're ready to go back and come away with a win.
You guys are stealing my thunder. That's where I was going with this. Man.
Okay, well, Russ, what's your prediction? We didn't hear from you.
So, I mean, I'm with you guys as far as what you said so far. That I think 2-2, I'd be okay with. I can see Syracuse and Wisconsin being struggling games and possibly losses. And then if you're talking about those being losses, I could see Virginia Tech being a tough game. And then Fresno State's the first game of the new era. So, I don't know what our record is with new coaches and their, opening their careers, their first season with Purdue, what our record is. But, worst case scenario, I could see a 1-3, but still feel kind of good about the pieces we have.
Yeah.
But, like you guys said, that video was very motivational. So Marcus Imbo was interviewing
Jeffrey Imba,
defensive lineman Jeffrey Imba. So Imbo and Imba, that wasn't confusing at all. Tyrone Tracy was talking to incoming receiver Jamal Edrine, and then Corday Sidor was talking to Marquise Wilson. And yeah, they got to that part. My favorite part was not the Coach Walt nickname that I know Dylan liked, but when they asked all three of them, what are your expectations? And you guys brought up earlier how big of a game that Ohio State game was, and getting guys like Sanussi Kane to go, hey, like I want to go to Purdue because they're on my map now. But I think we're in our minds separating last year from this year, and kind of rightfully so, because it's a new head coach, new era. But it's still connected. A lot of the same guys are coming back, and these guys that are incoming are looking at that and going, hey, you went to the Big Ten championship game last year. We're going to go again this year and win it. And then whatever happens after that is going to take care of itself. So, yeah, these guys want to win it all. These guys are not coming in as a rebuild. They're not coming in because it's a new head coach going, hey, the first year's a throwaway. They're coming in wanting to win it all. They want to go back to Indy and take home the trophy this time. So, I predict 4-0. I really am very optimistic. I think Syracuse was a fluke last year. I think Wisconsin was just a couple bad big plays. And I think having a defensive-minded head coach that can hopefully put a stop to those big plays. And we have, a decent O-line, I think, depth-wise. We got Maccabee coming in with a full offseason knowing he's the RB1. Like, I am very motivated for these first 4 games. I think it could work out well. But again, like I said, we lost to Syracuse and Wisconsin last year, and we still went to the Big Ten championship game. So,
yeah,
don't freak out after 4 games again this year. Don't do it, because we started 2-2 last year, got to Indy.
Well, no, I think those are all really good points, Russ. I think 2-2 is the low end, and I want to be optimistic and say 4-0, but I'll say I admire your optimism. We did get Pipe, who chimed in and said we should be thrilled with 2-2. So I mean, I welcome all opinions, definitely. And Nick Burris said, "What's up, Frank? What's up,
Frank's
Nick?"
Frank's fan club is here.
Yeah, Frank.
Wow.
Nick.
how do you not love the big brain?
Looking good, Nick. Looking real good, man.
The Big Brain Fan Club.
Yeah.
The Brainiacs. Ooh, there you go.
Ooh, there you go. Look at you.
They could all like in so not to show my nerd side here, but like in wrestling, like usually when a wrestler's kind of getting over whatever, the fans in the crowd will have like a sign that'll be something that they say or something they're known for, whatever. Except for this time, instead of it being a piece of paper, it'll just be people holding up like a picture of a brain, and it'll just say like Brainiacs.
If we ever do like a game day setup, there'd be a lot of those.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know there was an association with nerds and wrestling. That's not the type of people who I associate with wrestling typically.
I mess with wrestling. Little Stone Cold Steve Austin.
It's more that flavor.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, Damon, you.
Nick Burris coming in with some hot takes.
Can you guys hear me okay?
9 games. Yeah,
Yes,
we
sir.
got you.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 games would be. I mean,
Well, and Nick, I agree that the beginning of the season is really really where it matters most. Like we don't have any easy games. I mean, we go right into Fresno State.
Northwestern might be easy.
Yeah,
That is so loud. Holy crap.
maybe if they kick him
Yeah,
out.
I forgot about that one. Yeah.
And I mean, home against Indiana. Come on now. Like,
Oh yeah, that's a win. Oh,
Uh,
that's gonna come back to
Like,
bite me
I
in
mean,
the
I
ass.
guess, I
Freezing
guess
cold
what I'm saying
takes.
is that there are no like ramp up games. You usually have like last year when we have Indiana State, right? So we don't have anything like that. So
That game was so
a dry
wild.
run, a practice run.
It was so hot
Yeah.
there, dude. You were at that game, right, Dylan?
No, actually, that was the one game I missed last year.
Dude,
I
it
don't know
was
why. I
so
don't know why I
hot that
didn't go.
day. I remember my wife, when she was in high school, long story short, she became really good friends with one of the German foreign exchange students that her family hosted. And so she ended up coming back to visit last summer, and we took her to a Purdue game. And what did she say? She was talking about how like hot it was. And it was so funny. Like she was so excited to watch Purdue play Indiana State and just beat the living crap out of them, which is like funny because a lot of us, we probably were watching the game. We're like at, third quarter, halftime, we're like bored just because it's, at that point.
How
it's
could
just,
you be when Shout was up? When Shout was going on.
Dude, she loved Shout too. I shouldn't say that out loud,
Poor
but she
thing.
did. She loved
God
it.
love
She
her.
was like, "Oh, this is so fun." It's like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what she did.
She's like, this is a lot of, and the crowd, they pretty much left. Everyone was like, all right, this game's over. Let's go drink. And she's still loving Shout. I love it.
Yeah, but
The enthusiasm is incredible.
Speaking of too, just we're talking about like the songs and things that stadiums are known for. The follow up on last episode, we're talking about Virginia Tech and whether Enter Sandman is going to be crazy or not. Look up their games last year, like because most of the Virginia Tech games you can look up and go, hey, Virginia Tech, Boston College, 2022, Enter Sandman, and they had some noon games last year, especially late in the season where they were like 2-4, 2-5, and Enter Sandman was still jumping. So I think it's going to be a great atmosphere still to play.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a ton of fun.
I think this whole year is gonna be fun. I think that this is for anybody that's made a comparison to Coach Walters and like Daryl Hazel, because I know that was a big thing like right when he was first hired. I think that's a total joke. I think that Coach Walters is a totally different person than Coach Hazel. Not because of the fact that he is, but just their philosophies, their styles are so different. I mean, remember when we talked to Markel Jones, on the podcast last year, he talked about how, I don't know what other word to use besides boring. Coach Hazel was like, no music in the locker rooms, no like chit chat, just like very serious, very get like locked in or whatever. He didn't want people listening to music.
That
or
was
anything.
our friend Chuck.
Relentless.
Yeah, that was
Relentless.
Yeah.
Was it?
What's that?
Yeah.
Was he going relentless?
Chuck who was talking about that.
Hazel's was one.
I could have sworn Markel talked about how like boring Hazel was.
They probably both said it. I mean,
right.
That's how boring the guy was.
Chuck, our Chuck, friend of the podcast, talked about the like kind of the dichotomy between Hazel and Hope, and that Hazel was like music playing in the locker room, Hope was the music playing in the locker room guy. Would grab your helmet, yell in your face, get you hyped up, and Hazel comes in and is like, no, yeah, he had a very business-like approach, no music in the locker room.
Which college kids love. I mean, they really respond well to that.
You know how I think one of Coach Brom's most iconic like pregame speech videos is probably the one where he threw the chair right before Michigan in like 2018 or something.
They hammer down. They hammer down again.
Yeah, I could see. I hope Coach Walters starts a tradition of like Bill's Mafia style, where he just like jumps off of a chair onto like breaks a table before every game.
I'll do it. Like get Blitz here. Asked if we have.
Did you not see his foot was already in like an air cast?
He probably
like
still do it.
Leave the
guys
table jumping to us. We will do that. Like get Blitz asked if we have a tailgate location. I'm in H lot, so I mean, I'll meet us there. I don't know.
Yeah, but you won't be in H lot. You'll be by the Rowdy statue.
Yeah, yeah, wherever the Rowdy statue is, that's where we'll meet. We'll light candles.
We need to get Dylan like a big magnifying glass.
Response to that, officially get Blitz is no. Dylan's at all the games, but definitely stay tuned here, and we'll be updating as those.
I'll hang out with anybody
as those things progress, and Dylan will hang out with anybody.
Probably just be
speaking of getting
Blitz, but we'll do it.
Speaking of getting Blitz, make sure to get your Cincy Blitz board.
Oh, that was good.
They're high quality Blitz boards. You can DM them on Twitter. Extremely responsive, extremely cool dudes.
They're the best.
Boilermaker owned. Yeah. Got to get your Cincy Blitz.
They live close to me, so they're going to deliver mine.
So the Blitz board that I posted on Twitter, I thought it was the finished product. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Apparently it wasn't, and they've got they added railroad tracks to it, gold railroad tracks, and it looks amazing.
It looks so good.
Once we get another picture of that, or if I find that picture, I'll post it again because it looks awesome. It's like what everybody dreams Ross-Ade Stadium would look like 24/7. Like when they put the train tracks around the perimeter of the field. Like that board looks amazing.
It's so good. I'm so excited to get it.
Get ready tomorrow there.
Yeah.
Dylan.
Hopefully get your dice ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
I just noticed that was from Blitzboard. I'm such an idiot. I just realized that's who that
And
is.
I'm the old one.
That's awesome, actually, because I used the name to segue
Yeah, I
into
still
like
didn't get it. I still
shout out
didn't
our
realize
sponsor.
that's who that was. Jesus.
Yeah.
Hashtag
God.
always blitzed.
I
Dylan's
worked in the
always
heat all
blitzed.
day. All right, leave me alone.
I filled up propane tanks
I did.
and I delivered them all day.
See, y'all, we talked about this in our group thread. Actually, I think Dylan just pushes his old insecurities onto me
But I spend
because
too much time with.
I may be older, but he's the one that acts way older.
I spend too much time with Russ. That's what that is. Starting to get senile.
Dylan's like, hey, don't you guys think it's funny when you like forget stuff all the time and none of us say anything? He's like, yeah, Russ.
That time I forgot to even turn on my microphone for an entire podcast.
That is true. That did happen.
He follows up like 5 times on whether we have a certain guest on the show or not, even though he's already been told.
And then I ask like, hey, what's the topics for tomorrow? No, damn well I'm not going to prepare. I mean,
or like tonight, like 20 minutes for the podcast. Hey, we're still going live tonight, right?
Because I just realized what time it was, and I was like, oh shoot, it's Tuesday. Or even yesterday, I messaged the group channel. I was like, I thought it was Tuesday. I thought we were doing a podcast tonight, and it was Monday night.
Yeah.
Maybe I mean I apologize and I retract every old joke I've made against Russ. I'm not going to stop, but I apologize.
Yeah, there it is.
We found the source.
They're not
we
ending.
found the reason. But anyway, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here because we have hit that hour mark. So I just want to say a huge shout out to everybody that stayed, tuned in, listened. We really appreciate it. Big shout outs again to our partners at Big Banter. Check them out for all your Big Ten needs for every team this upcoming fall and into other sports as well, basketball and everything else as that comes up. So big shout out to Big Banner also big shout out to Cincy Blitz Boards. You can find them at Blitz Boards on Twitter. Get yours today. Have a lot of fun. It's a great tailgate game. It's a great party game that all your friends and family will love. And you can get any school. I don't know why you'd get any school other than Purdue, but you can get any school put on a Blitz board. And they do a fantastic job with it as well. So big shout out to our sponsors at Blitzboard. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And Boiler up.